Thank you for having me. The quote I chose for my presentation might be from Gustav Mahler. Other sources mention Karl Kraus or even some American politicians, but I think the quote can be used by anybody for anything. Of course, it especially leads to do things in Vienna very slowly, but very efficiently as well. This is a punch, maybe a punch card from 1905, where Gustav Mahler actually played the piano and recorded it to be played on this automatic piano. And this is a quote from the website from the Museum of Science and Technology, which I'm working for partly. And I suggest that if you replace music roll by games, it totally works. So this should be, and hopefully will be, the goal of the Museum of Science and Technology in Vienna on how to run things. We have this heritage, and we go on with collecting digital heritage as well. This is going to be a short speed run through my life, basically to show you what I try to contribute and what my ancestors try to contribute to the topic. And if you see this and think I'm rich, I'm not, because every generation in the family had to start from scratch. Think of incidents and what the first half of the 20th century had challenges for us. So my great-grandfather had a factory for electrical engines, but also invented games. This is from a fair in Leipzig in the 1920s. And he also invented other playful objects like this spin top, for example. His son, my grandfather, was a stamp collector and dealer and an auctioneer. So collecting is in the family. And my father was a professor for electroacoustics. And this is my first game. It's not an original recording, as you can see, but I had to land a triangle on a line. I'm that old. And then I did everything kids did in the late 70s and the early 80s, but then I had a break because I was only interested in music, in pop music, and I used the computer only to start my music business. I started collecting records at a very early age, and then turned DJ and organizer of clubs and tours for more than 10 years. But at the same time, I started, when I went to flea markets and hunting for vinyl, I also found the very first Game & Watch. Me and my brothers had it at the time. It was destroyed within a few days because we fought for it. Side note, the English translation is, it's not that easy to fight back your white girl from the gorilla. I don't know why. So I found this, and I thought, this is such a design icon, and also when it comes to digital games, the proof that this is worthwhile for collecting. So I started heavily collecting, and in exactly 20 years ago, 1 month and 20 years ago, I just opened a little shop and hub for the local game scene by putting my private collection into the public space at the Museums Quarter in Vienna. And I ran this space until 2020. I closed down 1 month before the first lockdown, luckily. But during that time, we started to build like the connection to the local player and game developer scene. So what Jakob mentioned as less crucial to have the connection to those who work for and with the medium is like an entry point. So we do it a bit the other way around. So I provide the connection to the history, to the people behind the games and the companies, and we go from there. The very first event we organized was 20 years and 2 months ago, with like local experts, and then we founded an association to tackle topics from science, art, education, and so forth. So all things not from the business side. And our very first guest on our very first talk was a young man called Andreas Lange, 26 February of 2005, and we didn't stop. So until today, we invite experts from around the globe, mainly Europe, for budget reasons, to share their knowledge with us and discuss with us. And then at this very first wave of successful indie studios, we founded another series of talks and workshops and so forth for the local indie scene. We also invited international best practice examples on how to start a business within the industry. We had several formats. These pictures are from last Friday. We do an annual live pitch competition where student projects compete with each other and do live pitches in front of an international jury and get prizes. We did and do studio tours where we go to local studios and people can literally look over the shoulder of the industry. How does a daily routine in a studio look like? What are the different fields of work? How games are made locally. But we also always tried to discuss the medium further outside of like playing games. I invited the French street artist Invader twice, in 2006 and 2008. He invaded Vienna with 56 mosaics, I guess. With another local street artist, we developed a free font. We provided a retro area at the annual Game City. It's like the small local Gamescom. We cooperated with many other institutions like the MAK, Museum of Applied Arts in Vienna, with local multiplayer games in the urban space. We did the first and so far only festival of Austrian games with more than 60 exhibitors in 2017. We cooperated with the Vienna Design Week with an exhibition on how games are developed in Austria, with a game jam, with a laboratory, and so forth. And speaking of my own cultural background, I started my own little studio with we finished a prototype on a narrative adventure, where also my family history is part of. From my father's side, people moved from Ukraine over Hungary to Vienna in the late 19th century, and on my mother's side, they went from the area of Brno to Vienna in 1945, which is the topic is tackled nicely by Charles Games with Svoboda 1945. But back to the topic, there was a first attempt to collect Austrian game history with a bachelor thesis in 2017. Students set up a website, started to do interviews, and started to approach game devs to contribute their games, their products to the site. This didn't turn out really well because it didn't grow. And he also left the project shortly after or so. But this was the first attempt to properly collect local games on a scientific level. But then, and also that's why I'm here today, I approached the Museum of Science and Technology because I found out that they had this funding for starting software collection or rather extend the existing software collection at the museum. This project was funded by the Vienna Business Agency, and there were several partners contributing to it. I'm responsible to do this connection to the scene and to the history, to the people behind the games. I started collecting oral history. I'm going to tackle this in a bit. We work with OpenSLX on the technical side of things, emulation, with Rhizome in New York / Germany, who founded the digital art collection, online collection. Dragan Espencid is the man behind that. And Margareta Jahrmann, who was our first speaker at the very first panel we organized, and is now my boss at the University of Applied Art. I'm gonna talk about this in a bit. So, how the Museum of Science and Technology run things is, there's two sides. One is the archive. I have to quote here: collection of virtual duplicates of the collected software / hardware in lossless archiving formats, not curated, not free of third-party rights. We're safe there. Internal use only. No, not to disseminate. Toolkit for building a repertoire of base images in the emulated framework, which means infrastructure, drivers, applications, ROMs. And on the other hand, there's the collection. That's where I come in. This is a curated collection of software-based objects, free from third-party rights, right to disseminate and publish via emulation framework, which means infrastructure. So, with the archive, we avoid legal issues, and with the collection, we basically clear them, and in a further step, will in certain ways make it available to the public. And since we are at the very beginning, there's not much more to say about this for now. So I'm going to tackle the Austrian history of the medium. Of course, we started with chess like everybody else, but only in a very basic form, because the programmer, the female programmer at that time, wanted to do like the whole chess thing in a digital manner, but she couldn't succeed. So this is shrunk down version of chess with only like the end game, so to say, the end boss, the last level, so to say. This machine is called Mailüfterl, which means little wind in May, because it was only the little brother or sister of the whirlwind, of course. That was the great step in technology at that time, and us Austrians who do things very late, we had just a small mild wind version of it. But we kind of succeeded at the first chess world championship in '74 in Stockholm, and became seventh. So those technicians from Technical University in Graz became seventh with their chess master Franz. And then in mid-80s we heard this already in talks in the morning. This demo scene and democratization of the tools to create software and especially to create games, of course, became a thing in Austria too. Listings were made, prizes were won. On the right you see an ad from a very early computer club C64. And all these people, here's a hobbyist who released dozens of games over the course of some years, but never in a commercial way, just as a hobbyist. He didn't become professional, and to find those people and ask them about their history, also record oral history, that's the most exciting part, at least for me. There was of course fanzines, like everywhere in the world, and this is a finding from a flea market just recently. No idea, no one the internet doesn't let me know who individual software was back in 86, but I'll find out. The first commercial game was made by Hannes Seifert in 89. And some people gathered in different areas, like at the Amiga Fair, for example, to get to know each other and to start working together and build the first companies, successful companies, growing companies in the 90s in Austria. But also very small studios who only put out only one game and then disappeared again, especially on the countryside. But the first huge success was the successor of this game, which I'm going to introduce in a bit. MaxDesign was the first company, fast-growing company, and I wanna especially mention this game, Burn Time, because this dystopian setting also included in the manual concrete advice on how to fight climate change. And that was 30 years ago, and it was in a negative way kind of visionary. This is the game everybody might know, which was the first million seller from Austria. And this is the time, of course, of liberalism. So build your own company and get successful and very rich. And local politics also found out that maybe investing in the industry might be a good idea because the tax money will come back because of those huge successes. The next company, founded by Hannes Seifert and two colleagues in the early 90s, was Neo Software. This was even a bigger success. And Hannes Seifert then, via 3 steps, sold the company the company turned into Rockstar Vienna and started porting only huge titles. This is a little, if you remember Twitter/X, if you haven't left yet, do so now. This was a post where he showed that Austrian industry contributed to huge global IPs. On the other hand, parties were done with body-painted women, which has luckily disappeared in the meantime. But from all of these people, a lot of indie companies were founded because Rockstar Vienna was closed down by Take-Two in 2006, and out of this pool of 100 experts, a lot of indie companies were founded at that time. And the third company you might have heard of from the 90s was ČVUT. They went bankrupt in 2010, and their IPs were sold to a company called Nordic Games. And Embracer today still plays a huge role in the Austrian industry with investment in several studios. More companies, more setups, and then the indie scene thrived, and we accompanied that over the years. Also with local cultural content, like this jam and this game just released a few months ago. But because to avoid legal rights for now, we concentrate also on collecting art. And Ars Doom was a Doom mod from artists, the first art mod, and there was the very first modding art festival exhibition in 1999 called Sin World, where a lot of artists became devs, and the other way around. Another festival, and nowadays I'm teaching game history at the University of Applied Arts, which is run by Margarete Jamann, and I'm still collecting both vinyl and games, and this is a great example of a double 10-inch soundtrack of Old Man's Journey, a game by Broken Rules, which brings me to the last slide with an experimental approach which perfectly combines art and playful, interactive, tangible media. Sound off. Thank you for the attention.